Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chamber. We pray for thy divine guidance, that we may do all things well, according to thy holy will. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Williams, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bunzel.
Here.
Mr. Gabbard.
Here.
Mr. Geraci.
Here.
Mr. Kelch.
Here.
Mr. DiNardo.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Braden.
Here.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. All members present. Moving on to item E, amendment of agenda. We have a letter from Auditor Jim Stith. This letter is hiring a new Assistant Deputy Auditor and approving the salary. Also, under minutes of previous meeting, we are moving December 8th and December 22nd. So we will have one meeting, or 1 minutes, that is the January 26th, 2021 minutes. And that's all I have. May I have a motion to approve the amendment to the agenda? Mr. Brayton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to amend the agenda as stated.
Motion by Mr. Brayton. May I have a second? Mr. Thompson.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any discussion?
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
So the letter is just in the communications?
Yes, it'll be P5.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. DiNardo. Anything else? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Geraci.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, motion passes. Item F1, January 26, 2021 minutes. Mr. Brayden.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Brayden. May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Geraci.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item H, request to address council. We have one request this evening. Pastor Sonny James.
Good evening. Pastor Sonny James, 1830 Hopkins Avenue, Norwood, Ohio. I want to encourage all of Norwood residents to come out and participate on this coming Saturday, February the 27th at 3 p.m. Starting at Victory Park for our second Black History Month parade. Our first one went on the 13th. I did make sure that each of you had access to this, along with sending the mayor a personal request. I encourage each of you to take a look at your emails and to try to put it on your calendar for this Saturday, the 27th of February, as we parade and celebrate Black History Month. We also have great news. Many of my peers have been encouraging me, saying, well, Pastor, 1 month is good, but we have to live this life 365 days a year. And so we will be continuing some of our celebratory activities, and everyone is encouraged to participate. On behalf of Elevations in Richmond, I do want to apologize on the initial flyer that went out. We just literally gained knowledge that there were some technical glitches, I'm told. So to get a copy of all of the Black History Month activities, you can go to www.elevationsinrichmond.com, where you will find on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we have Black history, Black culture type movies. The first movie was Hidden Figures. The second was Just Mercy. On this past Saturday, it was Something the Lord Made. And this Saturday at 7 p.m. will be a movie called Loving. Now, folks, listen. Let me just be real and candid if I can. You know, it just seems like no matter how awesome of the events that people of color in our community host and put together, it just always seems like no matter what date we choose, many of you are just busy. And I get it. I know with schedules and all of that. But like to the mayor, I know you have a full agenda, sir. But you know, when the African American community would send out an email, I know we have some that we work well with, and I applaud you on that. But last time I checked, we want to encourage every citizen that they are important and that their voice matters. And if somebody in our community emails you, it's only decent to at least email back and say, hey, your email came too late, I can't do anything about it. But when you just ignore it, guys, it just makes people of color feel like you handpick the blacks that you do work with. And then if someone like me steps up and no matter what idea I come up with, you're always busy. So listen, we've got some awesome activities going on. We even have a thing called Cooking with Soul. And you can log on and see how to cook soul food. And it was supposed to be at the end of the month, but we've extended it now to the month of March, where we're going to choose, the panel will choose somebody who was very creative in representing not just soul food, but also representing black history. And we will be giving a gift certificate to a local soul food restaurant to the recipients. We have an adult category, and so that our children aren't left out, we even have a youth category. So if the children want to try to maybe cook some black-eyed peas or cornbread, they can do so, and somebody will be celebrated. And then on the site, you can also see some of our black cultural games like spades and mancala and things of that nature. Guys, I just say when we do these activities, it's very difficult to believe that everyone a part of our administration is just so busy, but yet as you see with other events and community groups, you just seem to always be available when they do their events. It just happens that way. But we're going to make it. We're going to keep pressing together, guys. And all I can say is we're coming a long, long way. And I'm very proud of the steps that we're taking. But don't just put a sign out in your yard, guys. Come out from behind the sign. That's how people know your true color. Or not. So I applaud all of our other local community groups that are doing a great job, and they are. I applaud you all for addressing some of the difficult tasks that lay before you, because you do. But let's continue to strive together to be good. Come out this Saturday, 3 o'clock at Victory Park. We're going to drive up and down every street in Norwood at the regular pace so we don't violate our police regulations. And then we're going to parade up and down just a couple of streets. God bless you all. Be safe. And let's pray for Ron Murphy and keep he and his family lifted in our prayers. God bless.
Thank you, Pastor James. That's the only request I had to address council this evening. Moving on to item I, reports of standing committees of council. Item I1, Parks, Recreation, Public Spaces Committee meeting February 17th, 2021. Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. To Honorable Council of the City of Norwood, Ohio, we, your Committee of Parks, Recreation, and Public Places Committee, to whom it was referred, Red Bike in Rookwood, Wasson Way Extension in West Norwood, and discussion on Recreation Center planning for committee suggestions to administration. Begged leave to submit the following report. Our committee heard from Norwood Together regarding the cleanup week, which will take place March 20th to March 27th. This will take place morning to lunch. The 27th will cover all of the parks in Norwood. We also heard from Norwood Together and ASAP Norwood on an update on the park audit tool that they're working on. We heard from Red Bike, who is looking to install several locations around Wasson Way and Rookwood here in Norwood. We heard from Tri-State Trails regarding a possible extension of the trail into West Norwood. And we gave existing park project updates, mainly on surrounding Hunter Park, the walking path, the equipment, and the project we're doing there. Respectfully submitted, Chris Kelch, Chairperson, Mr. DiNardo, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Kelch. Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we receive and file the committee report.
Motion by Mr. Bonzo to receive and file. May I have a second? Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Mr. Geraci.
I'd like to apologize to that committee for not being there. I had a family emergency out in Batavia that I was attending to and didn't get back until about 8:30 at night that night. So I want to apologize for not attending.
Thank you, Mr. Geraci. Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Bonzo, second by Mr. Thompson. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item I2, Economic Development Committee meeting, February 17, 2021. Mr. Gabbard.
Dated 2/17/21 to the Honorable Council of the City of Norwood, Ohio. We, your economic development, to whom was referred, CRA for Encore Technology, CRA for Norwood Manor, and the Joseph VW. Beg leave to submit the following report. The committee heard from Encore Technology and Norwood Manor, representatives from them, as to what they will use their CRAs for. We also heard from Tom Perry and Kathleen Fitzgerald about how the city the city administration approves of these CRAs. We also heard from the Joseph Group, Joseph VW Group, as to their proposed development. Respectfully submitted, Michael Gabbard, Chairperson, Mr. Eric DiNardo, Mr. James Bonzo, and Mr. Eric Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we receive and file the committee report.
Motion by Mr. Bonzo to receive and file the committee report. May I have a second? Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelch. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, motion passes. Moving on to item J, third readings. We don't have any this evening. Item K, second readings of resolutions ordinance. We don't have any this evening. So we are on to item L. L1, ordinance reauthorizing the mayor and/or safety service director to enter into amended easement agreement with Regent Realty LLC for Schoolhouse Outfitters LLC as originally authorized in ordinance number 35-2014 and declaring an emergency. Mr. DiNardo.
Make a motion we have the first reading of this.
I'm sorry.
I make a motion that we have the first reading of this.
Motion by Mr. DiNardo to have the first reading. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Mr. Geraci.
Is this just, maybe I'm out of the loop on this one. Is this just to renew what's there now up to the fence line or the gate line? Or are they trying to extend this out a little bit? I haven't been able to go out and measure anything at this point.
Mr. Mayor?
My understanding is that it is the original easement, the same easement that was there. It was just not recorded properly when it was done previously. It needs to be recorded properly, and that's what this lets them do. So it's no expansion or diminishing. It's the exact same thing.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Geraci. Anyone else? Motion on the floor by Mr. DiNardo, second by Mr. Thompson. Have the first reading. Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Mrs. Williams, may we have the first reading?
Ordinance reauthorizing the mayor and/or safety service director to enter into an amended easement agreement with Regent Realty LLC for Schoolhouse Outfitters LLC as originally authorized in ordinance number 35-2014 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item L2, ordinance authorizing the safety service director or mayor to bypass the competitive bidding process and enter into a software as a service agreement with Peel 9 Incorporated to provide software and support for a records management and analytics system for the City of Norwood Police Department and declare an emergency. Mr. Thompson.
Move we have the first reading of this ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Thompson to have the first reading. Mr. Brady.
Second that.
Second by Mr. Brady. Any discussion? Mr. Bonson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to note that the police chief is here tonight so that he could answer any questions if we have them about the specific software.
Thank you, Mr. Bonson. Anyone have any questions for Chief Kramer? Mr. DiNardo?
Would you mind speaking a few words? Maybe just a run through of
so
ability to provide it.
we currently have we use PAMIT. It's a CAD and an RMS. We no longer need the CAD portion since we are being dispatched by the county, but we still need an RMS. PAMIT is essentially out of business. They no longer provide support. So the system will work until it doesn't work, but once it goes down, it's down. It could run another 5 years, could run another 10 years, but there could run another 5 days. So we are at the point where we need to have a new RMS. There's really 2 games in town, and that's the Peel 9, which we are looking to go to, and another one called Sundance. And I've had a group go out and look at both of them, and price-wise, they're relatively the same, but they thought that Peel 9 was a much better system. So Peel 9 is also local. Their headquarters is on Menor Avenue at the Hamilton County Business Center down there.
Thank you, Chief Kramer. Mr. Tracy.
How many other departments utilize this?
I don't have an exact amount. I think they're at the double digits now, I believe, in Hamilton County.
Anyone else? Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a question to the chief. So does this thing integrate, I guess it integrates with the county's CAD system, or is it, and then that helps to kind of populate some of these records that then get?
Yeah, they do. They integrate now with the Hamilton County CAD system. So that's really one of the only hiccups that we've had so far in going to the county is with our CAD. Some of the stuff shows up kind of funny. If we make a traffic stop and we don't stop until Cincinnati, you have to search for it. So, I mean, we're hoping with this new CAD system that'll take care of some of those problems.
Thank you, Mr. Bonzo. Anyone else? Thank you, Chief Kramer.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The motion on the floor by Mr. Thompson, second by Mr. Braden, is to have the first reading of the ordinance. Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. Motion passes. Moving on to L3, a resolution accepting the Montgomery Road redevelopment plan.
You have the first reading.
I think you have to read it.
Forgive me.
Getting ahead of yourself there tonight. Ordinance authorizing the safety service director or mayor to bypass the competitive bidding process and enter a software-as-a-service agreement with Peel 9 Incorporated to provide software and support for a records management and analytics system for the City of Norwood Police Department and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to L3, a resolution accepting the Montgomery Road redevelopment plan. Mr. DiNardo.
I'd like to make a motion we have the first reading of this resolution, please.
We have a motion by Mr. DiNardo. Mr. Thompson.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Mr. Gabbard.
Yeah, if we could have Ms. Mary C. Miller come up and just give us a quick overview, and then anyone else that you want to have along with you to give us a quick overview on this. I know that there's been several presentations to committees, to the public, online. And so if you're out there and you've not had the opportunity to see this particular plan, I would encourage you to seek it out. I believe it's also on our Norwood's website now, I believe, as of this week, so you can go on there and look as well. Ms. Miller?
Good afternoon. My name is Mary C. Miller, and I live at 1845 Hopkins Avenue, and I am the board president of Norwood Together. And I'm here tonight to say that, as you know, we've worked on this plan. We came to you last spring and told you that we had received the grant from Hamilton County Planning Development Department to work on the Montgomery Road plan. And we, with the help of a very amazing steering committee, many of whom are here tonight, and the Hamilton County Planning Development Department, we have completed that. And as Michael said, we've had several public meetings and taken input from the people at those meetings, as well as the Economic Development Committee and the Planning Commission. So we're here tonight to ask you to accept that plan as a guide and a concept map for the future of vision for our city. And it is your plan. It's the city's plan. It's not our plan. And it's an idea. It's not, if you notice it, if you look at it, that it's not the specific details. The engineering studies haven't been done, but is a guide, and it's what people would like to see for our city. I did ask Catherine Fitzgerald if she'd come and talk a minute as from HCDC and just tell us a little bit about why these plans are good for the city. And also Steve Johns is here from Hamilton County in case you guys have any questions for him.
Sure. Thanks, Mary C. I'm Catherine Fitzgerald with HCDC and the Business Center that was just discussed. I also contract with the City of Norwood to provide economic development services, and I've done so since August. And I just want to say how important a plan like this is. A corridor study, Montgomery Road is so important to the City of Norwood and is a major vein and thoroughfare for the city. It's very gratifying when a plan like this actually momentum starts, and it has. As many of you know, I think Council has approved a number of agreements already in that corridor, Ventura Commons. They're already marketing and have white boxed the business spaces above, the office space above the event center. Heritage Park was fortunate enough to get a decent-sized grant related to outdoor restaurant seating related to COVID-19, Anna's Restaurant, etc. So not only is it a plan, it's not one that's going to sit on a shelf, but I think for the steering committee and myself and Mary C. and others, it's very gratifying to be working on the plan and also see it have some feet and activity already. So I just want to congratulate her and Steve Johns and others for all their hard work. It was a great team, so thank you.
Thanks.
Also, just to let you know, there's several steering committee members here tonight. We have Tim Kling from UDF, Liz Bloom from Xavier University, Hillary Topsy-Cannon, who lives in our neighborhood, obviously, Catherine, are all here tonight. So we are glad to have them. So in case you have any questions, Steve has been just immensely helpful. He's been our leader, our guide, and has actually been the one that put the document together. So he's here in case you have any questions to ask.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabbard. Mr. President, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Steve Johns. I'm with Hamilton County Planning and Development, and it's been a pleasure to work with the City of Norwood, the second largest city in Hamilton County. It's something that we've been looking forward to for a long time, to be able to engage with the leaders of this community, both the elected officials, the administration, and the property owners and residents of the community. It's been a great planning effort, and we look forward to doing more. Just the key pieces of it, and again, I think you're very familiar with this, is we're looking at investing in areas with existing momentum, improving the basic infrastructure along the corridor, emphasizing the east-west pedestrian connections, something we call tactical urbanism, experimenting and activating the corridor, creating a strategic development framework. It's a very long corridor, and trying to break it down into manageable chunks. There are a couple big recommendations in the plan that I just want to make sure you're aware of, again, there's nothing written in stone about them, but there's a couple of streets that are one-ways that are recommended to be changed to two-ways. There's a couple signals in the corridor, traffic signals, that are recommended to be either added or eliminated. There's a big change south of Monroe Avenue to go from where there is no parking during peak hour to a 3-lane section at all times. That's a pretty big change. And we look forward, again, to implementation, not only with the city, but these large stakeholders in your community like UDF, like Xavier, that have committed to improving this community, making changes, and leading the community forward. Happy to address any questions you might have for me tonight.
Any questions? Mr. Donovan?
I don't have a question for you, so I didn't want to hold anybody up. I didn't see any hands, but
If not,
I had more of a statement. It was really why I wanted to have the first reading. One, because I think it'd be a good idea to have multiple readings and just continue communication on what we would potentially be adopting. And adoption, I think, is the appropriate word, because we wouldn't need to, we'd be transferring this to our plan, our city's plan. And that's kind of important to keep in mind to continue that positive and pedestrian-friendly momentum he was referring to there. It's also worth noting that this guideline, when we heard it in your committee, had recommendations that ranged from like free to very hefty. But the point was really that we keep that in mind, and we can, with or through a resolution, can turn back to it when we're making decisions on some of those free or hefty cost outlays. So, just a couple thoughts of why I recommend, or why I motioned the way I did.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan. Mr. Brady?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just want to thank everybody for showing up, and then whoever's involved in this, I just really appreciate this. Is really nice. I would like to make a motion, or if you would, I think it was Mr. Bernardo who made the motion for the first reading. Maybe we could have this reading in its entirety, the first one. It's not very long.
Yeah, man, it's great.
If it's okay if you can read.
I love it.
Yeah. I just think it's really special. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. So you want to amend your
Yes,
your motion? And then Mr. Thompson, your second? So we'll have the first reading in its entirety. Anyone else? Mr. Monsell?
Thank you, Mr. President. So yeah, I mean, I think it's great that I think it's good that we're doing one reading. I mean, I think it'd be, we've had so many meetings on this, I guess, in economic development. There's been community meetings, the planning commission's been engaged. You know, I think this plan is ready for acceptance, but I mean, I'll move forward with one reading. I just want to thank everybody that's been involved in it. You know, Norwood Together, Tim from UDF, all of the I guess stakeholders and people have been engaged. All the people that came to the different open houses that they've had. I think they had one virtual and they had one here. And honestly, I think this is one of the best, like, most exciting things that have come out of my time on council, having, you know, being able to adopt a plan that kind of sets a vision for the future of Montgomery Road, really south of the lateral. We did talk at a meeting in the past, I forgot which one it was at, but about, you know, potentially doing a study like this for other corridors in the city. And just want all of council to know, I mean, the response was that's absolutely possible. You know, we can apply for another one of these grants, you know, and choose a different corridor. There was a lot of volunteer efforts that went into it, so we'd of course have to, you know, find volunteers to help with that, and maybe some of the same people would be willing to do it. But this is an amazing start, though, and so I'm really, really excited about it. And yeah, I'm just excited to vote yes. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonsall. Mr. Tracy?
Yes, I guess I'm the only one not excited about this. You know, as stated earlier, you're looking at a little bit of money, a lot of bit of money coming out to do this stuff. Looking at changing streets that are one way because they may not be wide enough to accommodate two vehicles on that street, which means you're going to look at widening those streets, maybe taking some yards from some people if you have to widen those streets. I mean, you're looking at years and years of development for this process, and money, 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 and yet we've got streets that we need to do, that we need to pave immediately versus doing something like this. And I get it, we can get state, we can get federal grants because Montgomery Road's a state and federal highway. I understand that. I've been preaching that ever since I was elected. There's things that we should be doing on Montgomery Road with state and federal money. Absolutely. Been preaching it to every administrator that will listen to me. Whether I'm being listened to or not, that's a different story. But again, since I've been on council, we've focused on one area of the city. One area, the south end. And I get it. We got to start somewhere, and we got to, you know, this is an up-and-coming area. It's Xavier University. It's where everything's at. But we seem to always be forgetting that north end, that west end. You know, Sherman's a gateway to the city. The north end of Montgomery is a gateway to the city. We have 4 different gateways to the city, and we're focusing on one area to put all of our apples in the basket on. And this is not, I see one side of Norwood exploding in house and the real estate and, you know, coming in that $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 range, and I see one area of the city dropping down and not doing anything. And it's because of development in certain areas and development in other, and non-development in other areas. It's disheartening to me that we're focused on one area this entire year that I've been on council.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. Mr. DiNardo.
I thought that in the presentation that was made at the Economic Development Committee, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name in the back. Did a pretty good job of explaining that they did go through kind of the entire corridor of Norwood and selected the areas that they thought had the most immediate impact and value. Maybe I should have asked, or you could have asked that question, but I know that you'll have a comment there because you did a good job explaining that to us. And equally, it wasn't just focused, the plan isn't just focused on the road conditions itself. There are other elements to it, but I think it'd be a good opportunity, if you don't mind, of saying why they focus, we are now about to adopt a plan that's focused on a particular area of Norwood.
Thank you, council member. So yes, I think in a corridor like this that has not seen a lot of investment from the private sector in some time, is to try to focus on areas where the city has assets, such as City Hall down to Victory Park was one of the areas that we wanted to focus on, because you have control there. So you can get a good start there. But to Mr. Geraci's point, I think we're seeing this from a county perspective as the beginning of something that could expand to many other parts of Norwood. We're hopeful to continue our work in the city, continue to help where we can. Norwood is a critical part of the future of this county.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else? Mr. Gabbard.
Just want to reiterate, by adopting this plan, this is just a blueprint. This is a structured plan that says, hey, a lot of people took and evaluated this area from the lateral to our south border along Montgomery Road. They looked at each block and how that applies. Now, this could very well sit in City Hall and nothing ever be done. There's no money that we've designated for any of this. All this is a blueprint. So when we do decide, and I hope that we do, because this is our main street. This is what people see, and it needs improvement. So when we do get to that point, we can look at small sections, larger sections. This is all going to go by. Once we get to that and we say, okay, now let's look at, say, City Hall block. We don't just take this plan and say, this is what we're going to do. We look at this plan and say, this is some of the ideas, this is how the research that went into this for this particular section, and do we like that? The mayor might not like that. He may want a different direction, and we go into committee and we look at different things, we get input from other things. It's going to be based on what we would like to do and what the budget allows us to do. There's a lot of things in this. So this is not a budgetary thing right now. This is strictly a great blueprint, a great plan, a base for us to look at as we move forward. And hopefully we'll be able to do some of these things. I would disagree with Mr. Dracy to say that parts of Norwood, that the housing property is going up and other parts are going down. I was born and raised and grew up here in West Norwood, which was the lower income part of the whole city. And there are homes that are being sold right now within blocks of where we are currently for $200,000 and $300,000 and more that I would have never in my life guessed. So all of our city is really benefiting from some of the things that are going on and drawing attention to our city. So again, this is just a basic plan for us to look at. I appreciate those that put a lot of work into this. Even residents that came to open houses and went to the Zoom call and watched and gave some input. Not everybody's input was selected, and you know, that's the way a plan works. You know, not everything I wanted is in here. Not everything that everybody wants is in here. It's just a basic plan, so let's not get, you know, all worked up thinking that we're spending a bunch of money or already have budget items, because that's not the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to add also, that's great, that's great points, Mr. Gabbard, but also want to add that we have a citizen-led group that went out and sought out, and if I remember correctly, $30,000 for this type of, is that what, I think that was the grant, was $30,000, free money that they got invested into this planning for us, a citizen. I mean, I just am eternally grateful for that and appreciate everyone involved.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. Any other comments? Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to caveat on to what Mr. Garrett said. This is not like, we're not speaking in absolutes here. I mean, to me, this is a plan for the future, and it's going to grow and branch off. West Norwood has a lot of frontage on Montgomery Road, and the fact that whether we agree with this plan or not, the fact that somebody is willing to plan and include that section of Norwood, I and many other residents of West Norwood are very, very grateful. So,
thank you, Mr. Kelch. Anyone else? Mr. Bonsall.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I talked about this last year. I just want to repeat again. You know, I don't think we as council members, and I think most of us would probably agree with me, when we have community members that are coming that are wanting to volunteer their efforts or volunteer their time for efforts and their expertise and stuff, I'm not in the business to want to pick what they specifically work on. Like, I don't want to pick. I want them to work on what they're passionate about. And with that being said, this was always talked about as the beginning. And I also know that if we do a Montgomery Road corridor, or maybe Montgomery and Carthage, whatever it might be for the areas north of the lateral, they're going to need a lot of volunteers. I mean, they're going to need people for the steering committee. We're going to need community engagement. They're going to need business engagement. It's not going to be something, I mean, this kind of stuff doesn't just pop out of thin air. So, you know, I would just encourage everybody to do that. And I would say too, like, I think as a council, we're trying to invest, in my opinion, with the capital improvement plan. We've really tried to spread stuff out as much as possible. We're going to have the work that's going to be happening at 100 Park. Ward 1's about to see some major investment with the YMCA building, the community center, or the recreation center that we're going to be doing there. So, you know, I think all of Norwood kind of benefits from that. But, yeah. Again, I just can't emphasize enough how much appreciation I have for the people that volunteer their time for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonsall. Anyone else? Motion on the floor by Mr. DiNardo, second by Mr. Thompson, to have the first reading in its entirety. Mrs. Williams, please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Mrs. Williams, may we have the first reading in its entirety?
Whereas, A resolution accepting the Montgomery Road redevelopment plan. Got ahead of myself. Whereas the Montgomery Road redevelopment plan project was funded entirely through an application made by the Norwood Together Community Development Corporation on behalf of the City of Norwood to Hamilton County under Hamilton County Planning Mini Grant Program using United States Development of HUD and Urban Development Community Development Block Grant funds. And whereas pursuant to the application, the City of Norwood was awarded $30,000 of in-kind staff time for planning services by the Hamilton County Department of Planning and Development to complete the project. A plan designed to recommend short-term, low-cost improvements and medium-term, capital-intensive improvements to guide the revitalization of Montgomery Road corridor and to encourage private investment in a manner that reflects the aspirations and pride of the City of Norwood. And whereas the project begun in June 2020 has been completed, including a document titled Montgomery Road Redevelopment Plan, and whereas the council has been presented with the Montgomery Road Redevelopment Plan and has considered it, now therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Norwood, State of Ohio, that the council accepts the Montgomery Road Redevelopment Plan, the 18-page executive summary of which is attached to this resolution, as a planning tool for the further development of Montgomery Road corridor within the City of Norwood, and thanks Hamilton County Planning and Development and the other people and entities that caused the Montgomery Road corridor to be studied and this plan completed.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item M, administrative reports. Mayor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. President. We can start out talking about the vaccination clinics that the City of Norwood, the Board of Health has been continuing to do. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. They're ran smoothly. They're very successful. The people that are getting their now we are into the second round of vaccination shots and first round vaccination shots for a lot of different people. For the City of Norwood, we've given out over 3,300 vaccination shots. And then, of course, we've got the Hamilton County Vaccination Clinic that's going on at the Board of Elections. And then we have community members that are going outside of the city to get vaccinations because they can sign up and get their vaccination in other places. Many of them have been to some of the different hospitals for vaccinations. So there are a large amount of our community members that are being vaccinated. The Board of Health has been doing a great job, and the Health Department has been doing a great job getting them out there. I've been working the vaccination clinics as much as I can. I was working just about every Saturday. I'd worked at Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it is tiring work out in the parking lot, getting people the clipboards and meeting with them. After it was done, I'd basically go home and sit with my feet up because you're just walking around on the blacktop. But Brian Williamson has been doing this steadfast. I mean, he's been doing it every time. And doing a great job at keeping people moving. And I really have to commend him for all the hard work that he's done. They're looking at the different, how they will be done in the future. Now we are getting to a more agile age group, so they're going to start doing more of them at the Board of Health, which they have did vaccinations at the Board of Health. Of course, they've always had the flu clinics at the Board of Health, and then they went out and did that. But they went and did all the Norwood City School, the schools recently. So the group that's getting the vaccinations out in our city are doing a great job. And this is absolutely one of those times where you say, having a health commissioner and having a health department in the City of Norwood is absolutely a bonus to us as community members. The recreation, we had a pre-meeting last Saturday morning talking about recreation and reactivating recreation. It was one part of that, but the other part is the implementation of the new recreation building, which was the Richard E. Lindner YMCA building, and we are putting together a group that will meet next Saturday. This will be the mayor's task force to tackle both of those components. Tackle how do we reactivate recreation for the city. Pretty much last year, the only thing the city did recreation-wise was keep the swim pool open, and keep it going. And Tanya and the crew down there did a great job with the social distancing and getting the swim pool going, but now it's a little bit of a different challenge. Hopefully we will see, COVID is on the sidelines here shortly, and recreation will get going. We've got a master Taekwondo instructor that's ready to go. We've got people that want to get the Barracudas going, the swim team going again. So all these organizations, all these functions that the Recreation Department did in years past, we've got to reactivate. So that is something that we're starting to focus on. Continuous improvement at City Hall. The Water Department is in the middle of being moved out of their front little cubby hole in City Hall, which, and I think a lot of the problems that we've had is that when people walk into the little waiting area for the Water Department, if you're claustrophobic at all, you want to get your business done and get out of there. So we've moved them to a little bit of a bigger area in City Hall, so that water office is much more what I would consider to be business friendly. It also gives the staff at the Water Department room to do their job properly. So that's an important part. Norwood 311 operations are getting moving. They're moving forward. They're learning how to administer the See-Click Fix program, and then telephone calls that go in on the general line to City Hall will start going through those 311 operators. We continue with the auction, the surplus equipment auction, and that we've been able to clear out a lot of offices and clear out a lot of quite frankly, junk. That, one man's trash is another man's treasure, so we continue to put it on the auction website. If you're interested in going to that website, it's HamiltonCountyOhioAuctions.com. And you can look on there. This is one of those things that we got going in 2020 where we could use this auction website, and it's not just Norwood's surplus materials, it's Hamilton County and other communities. So there's actually some very interesting stuff on there. If you haven't looked at it, take a look at it. One of our old ambulances on there right now. I think we've got an old truck. Although maybe I shouldn't be saying that, because we don't want to see these old vehicles driving around the city of Norwood. We'd like for whoever gets them, please take them far away from here. But anyways, there is a lot of auction stuff on there. We had our first meeting of the Arts Board here recently. Just putting the foundation in place and bringing those people on. There's a letter on here for the third member of the Arts Board. But all three of those people were at the meeting. It was a very good meeting, and they have some interesting ideas about what the Arts Board's actual activities should be and how they can be, have a positive effect on the arts in our community. The interesting part was that they're not talking about just the visual arts, I know that it was really started because of the mural discussion and how do we do some of that stuff, but they're also talking about the performing arts and how do we use the gazebo and what kind of events can we do, and can we have an art show when we can do it? Can we have an art show at City Hall where you come in and you can actually go into your City Hall and look around and become much more familiar with it. I know there are a lot of people that live in this city that have never been to City Hall, and it's a beautiful building. So showcasing some of that stuff. So I think the Arts Board is going to be it's going to be very interesting to see how that group, and I think it'll be small but mighty, quite frankly, because they've got some interesting ideas. Talking about, going back, I guess, to talk about some of the stuff that's going on with Public Works. We've had a couple of good storms. Of course, our salt supply, as you would imagine, we went through a lot of salt. It was making Clint Zimmerman very nervous because we were getting very, very low on salt. Now, we get our salt through, and we're hooked up with Hamilton County also, so we're getting discounted salt because we're working with all the other, but the whole Hamilton County area was having challenges getting salt, so Clint was really having some nervous nights because he thought we were going to run out of salt. He was making calls and pressuring them to get us some loads of salt in. I sort of look at it the other way and I say, well, it's February, it's towards the end of it, we're getting rid of some old salt, so we got rid of old salt, which is good, but it was getting short and it did make him nervous, but I think we made it through and we're all good with that. The Elm Avenue project, I know you were going to maybe ask about that a little bit later on. We did get some drawings back for really moving that detention basin from where it is to another area, and that is a project that it is in progress. You might recall that the original quotes for that were, originally it was going to be, I think, $2 million plus, and with these new quotes, it's down a little bit, but those $2 million plus, think about it, were 20 years ago that we had those. So now we've got some new quotes, a different sort of engineering plan, and we're trying to look at that and figure out how we can get that going. But it's still a work in progress. I do think that it has made progress. It's moved forward. It's just a matter of more and continuing that. So it was mentioned that there are a lot of meetings, and that I am attending a lot of meetings, and a lot of meetings that are essential to city services, in my opinion. I have not been attending a bunch of civic meetings. I have not been attending a bunch of meetings that are for community interest groups, mostly because it's COVID, and quite frankly, I don't want it, and I don't want to be the spreader. So there are essential meetings that I've been going to, absolutely. There are non-essential meetings that I have not been going to, because, like I said, I don't want to be the spreader. And it has hit my family. COVID has hit my family, and quite frankly, I don't want, I had a close family member end up in the hospital, a young person end up in the hospital due to COVID. I'm not interested in being that person that ends up with COVID, nor being the person where I have to call on my friends and say, hey, remember the other day when we were having a beer? Well, sorry, I got COVID now. So that's not going to happen. I'm not going to big events. I'm not going to be at parades. I'm not going to be running around with groups of people. That's not what I think should be done at this time. If you want to go and have a parade, but don't expect me to be there. So that's an important part to it. I will say that I did go to the website that Pastor James mentioned, the Elevations Adjournment website, and look through some of the different programs and things that they've got going on. It's a beautiful website, and it does have some very interesting games on it and some fun stuff for children to do, and there's some very interesting connections to that. So I do think that that's a great website, and everybody should look at that. Equipment-wise, I was driving through the city today, and I saw they were out filling some potholes. I know that, so they've got the new trailer, right? The heated trailer that has blacktop in it for filling potholes, and they are working on some of those. Of course, when big storms like this go on, and the salt trucks and the snow plows were out, that opens up a lot of potholes, but they're working on them. But this is the perfect time for, if you see a major pothole or you need to see a problem, take a picture of it with your cell phone, use that See-Click Fix app and send it in. That gets it on the books, and that'll get it filled quicker. If you just drive over it and say somebody should fix it, it's probably going to take longer for it to get fixed. So use the See-Click Fix app. That's what it's there for. It's an important tool and a good tool to have. So, and then Mr. Dracy, I know there was a report here from the fire department talking about the runs that they had, and this is for January, and I know in January they had 4 mutual aid calls, and they provided mutual aid twice. The 2 other calls, it was a mutual aid call for a fire, and then they disregarded or called them off before they even got to the scene for that mutual aid. So the fire department is providing mutual aid services at times as necessary. So I think that's all I had to report.
Thank you, Mayor Schneider. Any questions, comments for the mayor? Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the report, Mr. Mayor. I have one thing to add about the City Hall and how beautiful that is. Anybody that knows history of that up in our council chambers, I want to add to that. If you know this, our council chambers actually had a dome ceiling that went up to a window. So it really is neat architecture. I've actually been up inside there and seen it. It really is a cool building. So I want to add that. Secondly, I wanted to say did you mention about, is it too early to talk about the pool? We planning on the pool opening this year? And also, I would like to know if, do we have a recreation director at this point, or are we looking at somebody, or is that even in the works?
We definitely plan on having the swim pool open, just like we did last year, Waterworks pool. The question is, the new swim pool, the outside swim pool that is going to be at our recreation building. We've got to figure out how we're going to implement that. My thoughts are that that will be opened up also. So we've needed to really figure that out. That is what the task force, I mentioned there's a task force that's meeting this Saturday, a group of people that are getting together that have interest in this, that will then guide sort of our direction on which way we go from there. That will also, I do have some really good resumes for recreation director, for the executive director of recreation, and then in the budget that you will be seeing, and some of you have already seen the budget that's in draft form right now. We're going to look at a program manager working in that office also to try to get things going. But that's all, that planning is all, shaping up at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else? Mr. Geraci?
I don't have the fire report in my packet, so I guess it doesn't matter because he touched on it anyway, but at least it's being put in there now.
It was sitting on the table. It wasn't in your packet. It should have been sitting on the table, I think, in front of you.
Mr. Braden?
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say thanks for that response. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Kelch?
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could, through the chair of the mayor, do we have a timeline on when we might be able to share stuff with residents about the new plan we're working on for Elm Avenue? Like some of the updates, the progress, like where we're going?
Well, this is one where the information came in. I've put stuff together engineering-wise and sort of went back and forth with a couple of different people, and I really wanted to sit down and discuss it with you and a couple of other individuals, because if you recall, at one time we were talking about potentially having to go to residents to talk to them about, where water is going to be shed and where water will be pooled at times. Yeah. And there's still some discovery that's taking place on whether we have some easements that actually will work out, are advantageous to this. And so I would say within the month of March, we should have all of that sort of finalized and some good information that we can share with others.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelch. Anyone else? Thank you, Mayor Schneider.
Thank you.
Moving on to item N, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business this evening? Anyone? Then we'll move on to item O, new business. Any new business? Mr. Gennaro.
Yeah. I'd like to discuss this in new business because I think it's in preparation, I suppose, for the public hearing that's coming up. But I have a question to Mr. Gary. At the Economic Development Committee, we heard from the attorney for the Joseph Group talk about a couple of what he considered pieces of evidence that showed that either okays, approvals, whatever these words are, that there was no issue with the property that was purchased by the Joseph Group being used for their dealership. And I think a couple of us were trying to wonder, well, does that mean that we're going to be on the hook for something? And if so, would the city be liable, or is there a significant risk of some sort of monetary damages that might come for potential suit using that evidence? Are you able to comment on what that would look like if they were to, bring a suit in front of us using some of the evidence that we were presented?
Not very definitively, because I can't predict what a court outcome would be. I can tell you that it looks unlike what I was frankly expecting. It looks for all the world like the Joseph Group did some effort to find out what uses were available to that site, and that they contacted the zoning administrator, who filled out a form for them that turned out not to identify this ordinance that had been passed in 2005 13 or 14 that prohibited auto uses, basically, as well as some other uses. And so they didn't know about that ordinance, apparently. Having said that, Ohio law has been pretty steady in saying that, for better or for worse, people cannot rely on what a city or the official of a political subdivision in Ohio may say about the current status of the law, et cetera. And so that factors into the question. And so I can't guess what, in terms of the equities and the fairness, it looks like they didn't get a fair shake of what the conditions were. But in terms of the law, the city may stand okay. But it just depends. That's all I can say.
No, that's actually very helpful. And I think I was personally trying to figure out what you made pretty clear to me, which was, is this a matter of kind of like fairness and principle, but versus am I really concerned? I know you haven't given a definitive answer yet, but am I super concerned about having a $2 million penalty or something like that, or paying damages for properties? And what I'm hearing is that's certainly not something you're definitively commenting on, but in my head, I'm sort of interpreting all these conversations to be probably not severely high risk.
I wouldn't expect that kind of a judgment out of the chute, put it that way.
That's well said, thank you.
But by the same token, again, the fairness issue kind of tilts toward them. The legal issue tilts toward the city, given the precedent for not being allowed to rely on what some city official says is the law or what the use is, et cetera. Does that make any sense to you?
And I have one more follow-up, okay. And it's on kind of like the fairness versus the dollar. And again, I think it's in preparation for the public hearing. That's why I'm talking about here. I think, is there a way for us as a council, if we were to see something change, like we saw a lawsuit actually come in front of us, that we could then do something like change behavior? And maybe change behavior is go to executive session and get more definitive on that. Is that something we're allowed to do?
Absolutely. The Ohio Public Meetings Law, 12122 of the revised code, has exceptions for executive session if there is threatened or pending litigation. And in this instance, there isn't necessarily threatened or pending litigation. Mr. Bonzel tried to draw that out of the Joseph's attorney at the Economic Development Committee meeting, and they weren't biting.
Yep.
And so it would be, we have the authority to communicate with the council, for example, by written document or letter or what have you, attorney-client privileged, but we can't, at this point, under the Public Meetings Law, actually meet and discuss this stuff yet, because there hasn't been a threat of a lawsuit.
You've answered all my questions really well. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Gary. Any further new business? We'll move on to item P, communications. Item P1, Safety Service Director John Murphy, letter to council. Mrs. Williams.
Letter dated February 1st of 2021, addressed to City Council. Dear Mr. Miracle, as I look back on the year 2020, I think of my first day in office and the challenges our city faced. There were many financial, infrastructure, labor contracts, and then COVID-19, along with many others. My plan was to have open lines of communication and reach out to all employees and to encourage them to do their best. With your help, we took the challenging year of 2020 in the right direction. We built bridges, removed walls, and solved many of the problems we were faced with. Contracts were signed, equipment was purchased, and the needed employees were hired. I could not accomplish these results by myself, but with the team effort, we moved the city forward. We have completed the first month of 2021 and are progressing in the same positive direction. I would like to thank Mayor Schneider, City Council, and all department heads for allowing me to be part of this team. Let us keep up the teamwork for a better 2021. In closing, I would like to leave you with a quote by Vincent T. Lombardi. The quality of a person's life is in direct proportion to their commitment to excellence, regardless of their chosen field of endeavor. Sincerely, John P. Murphy, Director, Public Safety Service.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Bonzel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we receive and file the letter.
Motion by Mr. Bonzel to receive and file the letter. Mr. DiNardo?
I'll second that. Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for your service.
Second by Mr. DiNardo. Any discussion? Mr. Bonzel?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I kind of want to echo what Mr. DiNardo just said and, just express my appreciation for Mr. Murphy and the Safety Service Director's Office. Anytime I've needed something, it's been a very quick response, and almost always it's a callback directly from him. So it's been appreciated by me, and, hope it continues.
Thank you, Mr. Bonzel. Anyone else? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present, voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item P2, City Auditor, regarding the January monthly financial report letter. Mrs. Williams.
Letter dated February 5th of 2021, Norwood City Council. Dear council members, this letter is to let you know that the January monthly financial reports were emailed to each council member on February 5th. If you have not received said email, please let me know so that I can verify your email address and also get you a copy of the reports. Sincerely, Kelly Brown, Account Clerk, Auditor's Office.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Bonzel?
Yeah, I move that the letter be received and filed.
Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion that the letter be received and filed.
Second by Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present, voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item P3, letter from Mayor Schneider regarding Mayor's Court fines. Mrs. Williams.
Letter dated February 4th of 2021 to Mr. Ken Miracle, President, and members of the Norwood City Council regarding Mayor Court fines. Dear President and members of Council, enclosed, please find the report for Norwood Mayor's Court for the month of January 2021. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Victor Schneider, Mayor, City of Norwood.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Thompson.
Move we receive and file the letter.
Motion by Mr. Thompson to receive and file the letter. May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo.
Yes, please.
Second by Mr. DiNardo. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present, voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item P4, Mayor Schneider regarding Norwood Arts Board one-year appointment. Mrs. Williams.
A letter dated February 16th of 2021 to Ms. Carrie Adkins Morris. Am I saying that right?
I do not know.
Okay. Well, my apologies if I did not. It is my pleasure to anoint you to one-year term to the Norwood Arts Board effective February 16th, 2021. Your term will expire on December 31st, 2022. As a member of the first seated board, your appointment is for 1 year. Ordinance 60-2020, which establishes the board, states that the first 3 appointments will be made for 1, 2, and 3 years. Appointments after the initial seating will be for 3-year terms. Thank you for accepting this position, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Sincerely, Victor Schneider, Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Braden.
Motion that we accept, file the letter.
Motion by Mr. Braden to receive and file the letter. Mr. Thompson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson? Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item P5, letter from Mr. Stith, City Auditor.
Letter dated 2/22 of '21 to City Council, City of Norwood. Dear members of council, the auditor's office is hiring a new assistant deputy auditor. We have found an excellent and experienced candidate, Lorna Rose. Given her background, education, and experience, we are requesting a starting salary of $40,000 a year, which is approximately $19.23 per hour. This amount is within the council-established salary range and can be managed within the requested and anticipated 2021 budget. As this amount is above the lowest level of the salary range, we are requesting council's approval of the starting rate.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Bonzel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we receive and file the letter and accept the starting rate for Lorna Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Bonzel. May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo? I was looking right at you. Any discussion? Motion by Mr. Bonzel, second by Mr. DiNardo, to receive and file the letter and accept the starting rate. Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. All members are present. We'll move on to adjournment. May I have a motion for adjournment? Mr. Braden.
Motion adjourned.
Motion by Mr. Braden, second by Mr. DiNardo. Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
No.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
All members present. We have 6 ayes, 1 no. Motion passes. We're adjourned.